Gridiron Grinder! Hut hut hike!
All right, it's Friday night, Gridiron Grinder time. I'm Ryan. With me, as always, is my buddy James. Just a couple of dudes hanging out, talking about what's going on in the NFL each week. This is episode 133 of Gridiron Grinder. And for tonight, we're going to kick things off with Name That Stadium like we always do. Then we're going to cover the news from this past week. After that, we're going to do our Super Bowl 57 recap. And last but not least, we'll close things off with question of the week. And so, with all that being said, how's it going tonight, James?
It's going good. How's it going with you?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. Sometimes these weeks there's not much to talk about after the Super Bowl's done, but there was a heck of a lot in the news this week, and so I'm sure we got plenty of ground to cover here tonight, man.
Yeah, I was looking at it a few minutes ago, and I'm sure there's shit we've missed. It seems like there's such a
This is a big
ridiculous
week.
amount of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, hey, so for anybody who's watching, if you're new to the show, welcome. We do this every Friday or every week, sometimes not always Friday, but if you like listening to a couple guys talk about football, well, then this is your jam. Hit that subscribe button. If you're familiar with the show, thanks for coming back. In either event, we do bookmark everything in the comments. That way, if you want to jump around, I'm sorry, the description of the video rather. That way, if you want to jump around, you don't have to just kind of sit and wait the full hour and a half or whatever to get to the topic. So, James, why don't we do Name That Stadium, man? How about you take that ball and run with it,
All
homie?
right. So this part of the show where, as you can see, I kind of travel the country and go to different stadiums during the season. It's normally a stadium that's hosting the game. Since the season's over, it's basically a free
Wild
fall.
card.
Wild card. I'll try to tie it into something that week, but um, you guess, the first person to guess right, we'll give you an extra special shout out. You even just guess, we might even just give you a little shout out, but and we'll bookmark the extra special shout out so you can go back and rewatch it over and over again. But last week was an obvious one. I didn't see any comments unless we got one after last time I looked, but I was in Arizona. It was the Super Bowl. It should have been obvious where I was. It was the only stadium hosting a game that week. So, and I think this is the third year in a row for Name That Stadium. Been at the Super Bowl stadium. So you should, those of you that are
VIP,
watching,
man. Yeah.
those of you that are watching next year, I'll probably on the weekend of the Super Bowl be at the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Tip in your hand, letting everybody know you got that VIP status. You get to the game. And, I was checking our views, man, and it seems like people were digging our conference championship video. That is like dwarfed all the ones around it in views. And so I don't know why. I would have thought the Super Bowl might have been a little bit better, but, it's weird. Maybe, we're going to get some of these delayed views pop in, or maybe this video will be the video that really hits it for the Super Bowl. But either way, it is what it is. And I like how you do it. You try tying it into something relevant that happened in the NFL that week, even though it's the off season and there are no home games. And so, yeah, let's see if we get any takers, man.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, well, let's kick it on over here and let's do our recap of the past week, James. Like I was saying, there was a ton of stuff in the news this past week. Usually, once you get into the off season, it's really patchy. Some weeks are super quiet. Some weeks are kind of crazy. Some weeks are quiet, but maybe there's like one big blockbuster thing that happens, like a trade or who knows what. This past week, we had like a whole flurry of different things going on. And I'll just start off by talking about Derek Carr. In the last episode, we were talking about how the Raiders gave him permission to speak with some other teams, trying to get a trade. As it turns out, I think from what I've read, there was a deal on the table with the Saints,
Hmm.
and Carr declined it. And so he has since been released by the Raiders because there was a February 15th deadline that would have guaranteed him 40.4 million for this next season. Um, you know, you covered it pretty well when we were talking about it, James. Do you want to comment on this about, some of the risk of doing this versus accepting a trade and all that kind of jazz?
So, like, where the risk is if he was traded, he would have been guaranteed that 40, was it 44 million?
I think it was 40.4 is
Yeah,
what I saw.
well, 40.4. That makes more sense. I was like 44 seems high, but it would have guaranteed on February 15th. There would have been risk with the Raiders in the first place if they would have agreed in principle to trade him. Like say the Saints trade were to happen, and the Saints were agreed to trade him because they couldn't actually officially trade him until the start of the new league year. If they worked out a trade, the the Saints could always back out, which would then guarantee his contract would guarantee because he would have been on the roster on February 15th. I think by him declining the trade, it's a risk because he could not get that much money. I mean, there's these teams that are gonna be clamoring for him. I hear, which we'll probably get to in a second, he's going to be visiting with the Jets this week
Yep.
to try to work out a deal. I think it's a risk, but I think in the long run, he probably will. I'm sorry, he's visiting the Jets this weekend, not this week. He probably will get a contract, and he'll have a longer contract, probably with a little bit more money guaranteed in there. So it's a good move for him. And for the Raiders, if there was a trade worked out with the Saints, it's possibly better, possibly depending on how much you want to talk about the Saints that Carr said no, but it's the ultimate fuck you. You're going to bench me 2 weeks left in the season or 3 weeks left, whenever the fuck they benched him.
Yep.
You're gonna bench me. The entire time I've been here, I've had 6 different head coaches, including interim coaches. I've had 6 different head coaches. I've had 5 different offensive coordinators. I have no consistency. The entire time I'm here, that my defense was ranked the highest in his entire career with the Raiders. The highest the Raiders defense was ranked in the league was 20th. So he has the 20th to 32nd best defense in the league. I mean, it's the Raiders never supported him, so I can understand him saying, I'm not going to help you out. Why the fuck should he help him out?
Yeah. Yeah, and
So,
in the Saints, it was like people talked about, was it a real trade offer because Carr has that connection to Dennis Allen, and maybe they were just trying to help him out, or who knows whatever was going on. But the Saints, they're saying they're like 59 million over the cap is like what they're projected at right now. And so
mhm.
could they really have pulled off a trade to bring in Carr anyhow? Now, I mean, hey, we saw it last year. They went into the offseason like 70 million over, and they found a way to work it out. But it's like ridiculous. Like, how many times can you pull some freaking rabbit out of the hat like that, man?
Yeah, and the thing with it is what I hear is the trade from what New Orleans was offering was players which might have helped them with that salary cap
Oh,
a little bit.
gotcha. Yeah,
So
that would make sense. Yeah.
I'm reading a lot that they weren't actually offering draft picks to the Raiders.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha. Okay.
so that might have helped them out a little bit with it, but still, if I was Derek Carr, I would want to hit the open market. I would want to be able to pick my team I went to, whether it's the Jets, whether it's the Saints. I would love it if he were to sign with the Saints because that would be the ultimate fuck you to the Raiders.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. It was like, hey, we toyed you, or we teased you with a deal, and we didn't give it to you, but I went there anyhow.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that'd be wild.
That'd be great, but I don't. I'm not. I don't think it's really going to happen. I think it's going to be one of the other teams that are looking for a quarterback, like maybe Indianapolis or Carolina. I mean, an interesting one I've heard, rumor is Miami,
Oh wow.
which, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, although Miami's saying, they're all in on Tua, all in on Tua. There's a lot of serious. I'm not knocking him. Concussions are fluke things, but outside of concussions, his availability hasn't been there.
Yeah.
Even if you take away the concussions, he's had a few serious injuries.
Yep. That
One
hip
towards
thing.
his college
Yep.
career, and then he had one non-concussion. Was his rookie year or his second year? Like he had another like issue with his lower torso, which the style of quarterback he is, you need that. So I can see that. I've also seen a lot of rumors of a sign and trade of Lamar going to Miami.
Okay. Yeah, and I was going to mention that is that the rumor mill has, Baltimore talking about signing and then listening to offers. Well, and
Hmm.
I guess it's not even really a rumor mill anymore. They came out and said it. And so, um, you know,
Oh,
I
I
mean,
didn't see that they came out and said it.
I thought they said that they would listen to offers. And so maybe, I don't know, maybe it was a rumor mill piece, but I thought the team said the plan is to tag him, but they'll listen to offers. And I don't know, man, maybe that was just some guy speculating. But either way, whether it's rumor mill or not, in past years, we might say, oh, it would never happen. You don't move these big name guys. But in recent seasons, we've seen some of these big moves happen. And so I think it becomes more realistic now than it used to be. Um, and I don't know, man, something just doesn't jive with Lamar in Baltimore anyhow. It just seems like they're not fully enamored with him, and what's causing that, I don't know. Me personally, I would be worried about him because of his playing style, but they're already in bed with the guy, and he's had success with them. Man, I don't know. It just seems like the deal is going to get done, and they're going to hang on to him. But I guess time will tell. And I see you doing a little bit of digging here, so. While you're digging, James, I'll talk about a couple other quarterback pieces that came out this week. One of them is with the Bills quarterback, Josh Allen. Looks like he is not going to need elbow surgery, and he's on track for a full recovery for the 2023 season. That's positive. Another one is Kansas City backup quarterback Chad Henne has announced his retirement. 15 seasons in the NFL, former second round pick out of U of M to the Miami Dolphins. He did have some opportunities early in his career to start, but ultimately ended up being a backup for the vast majority of his career. Very good backup at that. I think that, this is like one of those like unheralded sort of like it's a noteworthy career in my opinion, even though he wasn't like a premier player. The fact that he was able to hang around in the league for 15 years means he stayed at a really, really high level for a long time. Very hard to do. And so I just think it was good for him. Obviously he's a Michigan guy. I like that. He's, from the backyard here, but um, you know, I mean, what did they used to say? Like the average career is like three and a half years in the NFL or something. And so 15, phew, that's a sweet career, whether you're a starter or not, man. All right, what'd you find, bud?
Yeah, so I was everything I found was really like was they're expected to tag Lamar, but could be tempted by other offers. One thing I find interesting is, and I forgot about this till I saw this, is they could put the non-exclusive tag on him,
Oh yeah,
which I mean it guarantees it's less money uh, against cap, but it gives him the opportunity to negotiate with the entire league. And if he reaches a deal with another team, the like Ravens would have the opportunity to match that deal, or if they don't match that deal, they would get two first round picks in exchange for Lamar.
yep,
So that's where I think it probably would be heading.
okay. Yeah, I mean, do you want to pay the money and have Lamar, or do you want to get the two first round picks and let him walk? I don't know, man. It just something doesn't seem right with what's going on with him in Baltimore.
Yeah, what doesn't what and talking about Lamar, like what doesn't really seem right about it is the fact that like he's hurt and his the whole playoff thing, like I'm not 100% to play. Dude, nobody is 100% in the playoffs in the NFL. No quarterback was 100%. Look at fucking Patrick Mahomes. He had a high ankle sprain in the what was it
Yeah,
the divisional round, won
yeah.
the championship round game, and then
Hobbled. Yep.
won the
Yeah.
fucking Super Bowl. Re-injured his ankle at halftime of the Super Bowl. was, I mean, you never know what could happen. You don't have to be 100% to play in the playoffs. Nobody's 100% to play in the playoffs.
Yep.
I'm sure Jalen Hurts' shoulder was still giving him problems, but there was no issue on whether or not he was going to play. So that's why he wasn't on the injury list. He wasn't 100%. And like if you look at the last play, he couldn't throw the ball 40 yards.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I
There's
wondered what happened there, if the ball just got away from him or what, because it was just such a lame duck pass. I thought, man, that's
mhm.
like I knew that they had like basically no chance anyhow, but it was just like, would it have at least been good if he launched one out there? But hey, it happens, man.
Yeah. So I mean, it is what it is. I didn't mean to get to the Super Bowl there, but it was just my point. Nobody's
No,
100%.
it's all right. Well, let's talk a little bit Super Bowl related. We'll get to the Super Bowl recap in a minute, but Philly, their right tackle Lane Johnson, he has undergone surgery to repair his torn adductor. I don't even know what the heck an adductor is, but they're saying he's going to be out for, well, not out, but he has a 10 to 12 week recovery time. So that's going on, which I mean, hey, that's, he'll be good for next year, and that's fine. They got a rock solid offensive line. But otherwise, in Philly, we're starting to see some of the exodus occur for these top teams that you usually get after the Super Bowl. Indianapolis has hired their offensive coordinator, Shane Steichen. So he's going to be the head coach in Indy. And then Arizona has hired their defensive coordinator, Jonathan Gannon. He'll be the head coach in Arizona. Nick Sirianni, from what I saw, he feels pretty confident they got some suitable replacements already in the building. But it's a bummer. Like they just kind of got this thing going, and they're losing both of these guys at the same time. I gotta believe it'll set them back a little bit. Hopefully, not too much though.
So the abductor is their hip muscles.
Okay, kind of
It's
important for an offensive lineman. Yep.
yeah. So it's kind of like on the outside muscles on the hip. It's the gluteus minimus, the gluteus medius, and the tensor fascia, which I believe those are the three of the four muscles that go into your quadricep.
Okay.
If I remember correctly.
Yeah. See, this is where we got to move over to OBS or something. We could just pull up a image on Google and be like, "Oh, here it is, right here, guys."
No.
Yeah, and while you're looking at that, I'll flip it over on the Kansas City side. James, I saw earlier today, looks like offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy is heading to Washington. He's going to be their assistant head coach as well as their offensive coordinator. I guess it's good for him to shake it up and kind of get like that assistant coach promotion somewhere else, but I would just like to see somebody hire him as a head coach already. you know, I mean, they must be discounting him, thinking Mahomes is why it's so great, and maybe because Andy Reid's an offensive-minded guy. But it just seems like Bieniemy should have gotten something by now.
So the muscles. Oh no, they go. It goes back into, and then kind of behind, and like it's. I'm trying to decipher these pictures, but
Okay.
one of them goes. It's they all basically stay in your hip, and they combine the gluteus medius tensor, those three muscles combine, and then there's a ligament that goes from your hip to your knee,
Okay.
basically.
Well, thank you, doctor.
So yeah. So anyways, but
He'll be back, and
yeah,
that's the important thing.
the enemy. That's the last one. While I was looking up the abductors and
Yeah.
the quadricep, the enemy going to Washington. The good thing about it is, number one, it's technically a promotion for him
Yeah.
because they named him assistant head coach and the offensive coordinator. The second thing with the enemy is he's been on 1 year deals with Kansas City for a long time, and the I still don't understand why he hasn't gotten a head coaching job. I don't even remember
The frickin'
hearing
man, if the
hearing about
Patriots
him.
would have just waited.
Yeah,
Oh.
I don't hear about him interviewing for head coaching jobs this past year.
No, I think it was the year before, and then yeah, this year was quiet with him. It was kind of strange. He might have had a couple, but
Yeah, and
yeah, I don't know
the
why it
biggest
cooled off.
the biggest argument I hear about why the biggest argument I hear is, well, he's not really calling the plays. It's really Andy Reid calling the plays. But Andy Reid came out and debunked that pretty quickly a couple years ago, where he said that it's Bieniemy that's calling the plays.
Yeah, and he was trying to pump him up pretty good after the Super Bowl. Like you could tell he's trying to get the guy hooked up, and he deserves it, man.
Yeah, so it's just he deserves a head coaching job. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is about him. He must be like a terrible interviewee, or something. Like it's
It could
so
be.
weird.
It could be. Yeah.
It's so weird.
Well, let me give you weird, James. Looks like Rex Ryan is going to be coming back to the league. I read this week he is the front runner to land
Hmm.
the defensive coordinator job with the Denver Broncos. I liked Rex Ryan. I'm just wondering how effective he can be after being out of the league since 2016. But I will say this as a defensive guy, he had a lot of success as a head coach and a defensive coordinator. In 12 seasons, he had 9 top 10 defensive units. And so, um, maybe there's still some potential there. I think Sean Payton likes some of those old school defensive minded guys. If you remember like Greg Williams back in the day with the Saints and like the whole bounty thing and like maybe Rex Ryan kind of fits what he's trying to do there in Denver and hey, hopefully there's some magic left. Otherwise it'll just be, news today and a flop tomorrow.
Yeah. So I hear. See, I heard if they were deciding. I didn't actually read that he was the front runner, but I heard they were deciding between him and Vance Joseph.
Okay.
Because apparently the Cardinals let Joseph go a day ago.
Yeah, I mean, if they got a defensive minded head coach, then makes sense. Yeah, the article I saw was front runner, and so doesn't mean it's in the book, doesn't mean it's in the bag, but it looks like it's leaning that way. But yeah, I mean, hey, maybe Vance Joseph, maybe that shifts things a little bit, and who knows what could happen here, man.
Yeah, but I just did the search and then so it was like right back to back um, that they apparently they interviewed Chris Richard from Dallas
Okay.
a couple days ago. Vance Joseph was interviewing, but according to NFL.com, Rex Ryan is apparently the top candidate.
Gotcha. Okay.
I agree with you. I don't know. Yeah, he's been out of the league since 16. He hasn't been the defensive coordinator since, what was it, 2008?
Yeah, it's been a while, man.
But he's kind of stayed connected to the game because he was on ESPN. I I don't see him being successful as a defensive coordinator in this league. The league has changed too much over the last 6-7 years.
Yeah, we'll see if he's got some tricks up his sleeve. But yeah, that's my concern is that it's always evolving, and that's a lot of time out of it. And even though he's still kind of been involved in some way, it's not the same as being a coach. And so, but hey, time will tell. Time will tell, man.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the next one I got, James, is the Jacksonville Jaguars wide receiver Calvin Ridley. Missed this
Mm-hmm.
past season on account of that suspension for betting on games. He's applied for reinstatement. We'll see how that shakes out. I think, everything I heard was that as long as he applied for reinstatement, it was likely going to be just the 1 year. But they did say the suspension was indefinite when they made it. And
Mm-hmm.
so that gives the league a lot of power here to decide what they want to do with him. If he comes back and he is in proper form, that's a huge boost for Jacksonville. I think that, when you look at the weapons now that they're going to have around Trevor Lawrence, plus his continued development,
Hmm.
they could be a force on offense next year. And so I thought that was one of the really good trades last year. I know you and I talked about it when it happened. It kind of flew under the radar, but we were both looking at it as like, phew, that could be a sneaky good trade for Jacksonville. And here we are. The hype train is starting to roll with the Jaguars, man.
Uh-huh. Ex- exactly. I kind of started jumping on it. I jumped on it a little bit before you, but I really like what they're doing down there. And while we're talking about Jacksonville, it was a couple weeks ago. Did you hear Urban Meyer said basically came out and said that the turnaround for the Jaguars was because of the talent they acquired.
Oh, okay.
Had nothing to
Yeah,
do with the coaching change
sure.
whatsoever. It was because they acquired more talent. Yeah, bullshit.
Sounds like someone's a little bit sore, if you
Yeah,
know what I mean. Yeah.
exactly.
Okay, so the next thing here I got, James, is Chicago. They've been talking about possibly moving out of Soldier Field. Looks like they have purchased property for a potential stadium site in Arlington Heights, and so this is like now really escalating to a more realistic scenario. It would be
Hmm.
weird to see them leave Soldier Field, but like all the cards are starting to kind of show that's what their intention is. And I'm sure they're probably wanting, the city of Chicago or whatever, somebody to come in with some money and help them like update the stadium and do some things. And maybe this is negotiation tactics, but I got to believe there's obviously very real interest in just moving it anyhow, because they're obviously now starting to shell out some cash to make that happen.
Yeah. So I'm not surprised. It's been talked about for a while. And like, was it like 4 years ago that Soldier Field underwent like the uh, remodeling or whatever?
Oh man, I don't even know, but
And then, but it's an older field. Like I would like for them to stay,
yeah.
but they need a state of the art facility, and I don't think Soldier Field is that.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, I mean, I've not been there. I've driven by it a bunch of times and it looks sweet. And my buddies that have been there all say it's amazing. Um, we're gonna have to make it a point to get there before it's gone, man.
Hmm.
Okay, next up, Saints running back Alvin Kamara indicted on battery charges from an incident that occurred in February 2022. Seems like a long freaking time for him to get indicted, but the legal process, I've been fairly familiar with it from what I do at work. It can be a very slow, painful process. And so he's now indicted. We'll see where this goes. Honestly, I don't even remember much about the incident.
Yeah. So everything I remember reading about it, and I was just kind of glancing because I saw he was indicted, so I was like, oh yeah. He I remember it. So basically, he was involved in a fight or something outside his hotel at the Pro Bowl last year. Kamara saying that the reason for the fight was he was attacked by the guy,
Okay.
and so there was delays and delays and delays in the legal process, and then finally they came back um, and charged him. Apparently, it went to a grand jury, and so Kamara, since the cornerback Chris Lamons, who was apparently a chief at one time, then was waived and claimed by the Bengals, I never really heard. And two other men were indicted. Oh, it was a nightclub, not hotel, for assaulting somebody. There was, if I remember correctly, the guy was on the ground, and there's video of Kamara kicking him in the head.
Okay.
If I remember correctly, I couldn't find, like, I glanced for the article because earlier I couldn't find the article again or any um, uh, tangible things about what happened previously. And there's also a civil lawsuit filed about it. Wait, is this the one I wanted? Which, yeah, and apparently there's a civil lawsuit filed against Kamara too, by the same Houston attorney that represented the people against Watson.
Okay.
And I'm just glancing because there was something pretty bad. Here. So the victim, alleged victim, had a conversation with Kamara and his group before attempting to walk into an elevator. According to the police report, Kamara put his hands on the man's chest and stopped him, and was pushed away before Lamont punched him. He told police that he was pushed and stumbled before falling unconscious while the defendants allegedly hit and kicked him. Allegedly, the alleged victim sustained orbital fracture on his right eye and marks on his side, knees, and arms. The surveillance video matches the alleged victim's statement.
Okay.
Writing in the report that Kamara punched the man 3 more times after he was unconscious.
Jeez. Yeah. Just excessive use of force.
Yeah, it's excessive. And there's no place for that. Like the guy's down. Why are you still hitting him?
Mm-hmm. Well, hey, that'll be interesting. The Saints, man, I can understand why Sean Payton wanted out, but I think he probably created some of that mess, and so it feels like he's getting away scot-free, but that's a story for a different day, I think. All right, so James, we talked about Lamar earlier. Chicago with the #1 pick in the draft. These guys I know definitively have been making comments about listening to trade offers for Fields. And, I think part of it is that they want to maximize that #1 pick. And so if somebody wants to trade up, they'll hang on to Fields and they'll take a bounty of picks. If someone wants Fields, they'll trade Fields for some picks and then they'll draft a quarterback this year. It sounds like they're pretty good no matter what. Fields is frustrated by it. He's asked for, some honesty or something with the process or whatever. And, I think that you gotta expect some of this to happen at this time of year. But the gut feeling is that Chicago really would be interested in letting Fields go. It's kind of how I feel, man. What do you think?
It's a difficult situation there because the current front office in Chicago and the head coach have no ties. They didn't draft Fields, so they have no loyalty to him. I think if it were me and I were Chicago, I would trade Fields and go with one of these guys in the draft this year. Who that is, God, I don't know. I go back and forth. There's probably about five potential QBs or franchise QBs in this draft.
Yeah, so you got your pick of the litter. You just hope you do the right homework.
Yeah.
And I'm with you on that, man. I think Fields, he helped him get some wins this past year that nobody was really expecting. But he did it pretty much all on the ground. And when you look at his passing numbers, they didn't really improve that much. And that's the concern is that, hey, that's great that you racked up all these yards rushing, but you got to be able to pass in this league too. And if you're totally one-dimensional, that's a problem. Lamar, he can throw a little bit. Obviously, Hurts can throw plenty if he needs to. but you can't just be a runner. And so I don't know, man. I could see Chicago saying, "Nah, we're going to take something and move on here."
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the fifth one
Okay.
because it's although I've heard a lot of discounting of Bryce Young because he's so small.
Yeah, I mean everybody I know is saying, he's still in the mix for the number one pick, man. It's just what direction do you want to go,
Oh, that's the other one.
Stroud, Young,
That's why I was
Levis.
forgetting about him. So you have Bryce Young, you have C.J. Stroud, you have Will Levis, Anthony Richardson, and Hendon Hooker. And I mean, like even if you get down to like yeah, I think Hendon Hooker be about the buck because he's about an 80. I think anything below about an 79, 80 is it's kind of a little bit of a stretch.
Yeah.
But yeah, so those were the five I couldn't remember Hendon Hooker. I had the other four. I was like, who's the fifth one?
I gotcha. Well, yeah, and then, continuing on the quarterback stuff, this is also, I got it under my rumor mill category, but this is not necessarily rumor mill at this point, is that Green Bay is saying they are
Mm-hmm.
willing to trade Aaron Rodgers if that's his desire. And
It's
so,
more than that. So long time Packers beat writer has said, quote, in his podcast, he said, quote, they are done with Rodgers. He's not coming back. I mean, they're disgusted with him, and they're done with him, and they're moving on.
okay.
And as
Sometimes you can't put up with the bullshit. And he comes with a lot of baggage, man.
yeah, public niceties aside, my sense is LaFleur, fresh from a terrific 13-3 baptismal season, simply had enough of Rodgers' act and wanted to change the narrative. With the first-round talent on the roster, the Packers would gain leverage with their imperial quarterback and his passive-aggressive style.
uh, yeah, I mean, hey, yeah, he's a dick, dude. Everybody knows that.
Yeah. So, while we're speaking of Rodgers, did you hear? So he went on the Pat McAfee show, or on Tuesday, which he normally does, because there was like rumors that his darkness retreat was going to be last week, and he basically lambasted the media
Okay.
and whoever's talking to the media. Said something along the lines of, "I have my inner circle, and my inner circle isn't talking to the media." So if you're talking to the media, know this: you're not in my inner circle. My
Okay.
inner circle doesn't talk to Ian Rappaport, Adam Schefter, these so-called insiders. And it's just like, dude, just tell me what your decision is.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus Christ.
To me, it's similar to all the BS going on with the Rams. If you're
Mm-hmm.
not all in, you need to get all out because this isn't doing anybody any good.
Yeah. Well, the thing with Rodgers is, and it's not, it's not, the thinking about retirement. I think he, last season, he contemplated retirement and said, he's all in.
Yeah.
And I think he's all in. I don't think he's going to retire. I think he's just fed up with Green Bay and all the shit that has happened there with him. I mean, go back to 2020, and instead of drafting, I don't know, T. Higgins, let's say, instead of drafting wide receiver T. Higgins, who, by the way, thought he was going to be drafted by Green Bay.
Yeah.
They drafted Aaron Rodgers. Oh, not Aaron Rodgers.
Jordan
Jordan
Love.
Love. Aaron Rodgers' replacement. It's just like, and then he was an MVP. So how do you get rid of him off of the MVP season?
Yeah.
So you make nice, and he comes back, and he has another MVP season. So you make nice again, and basically saddle yourself with a terrible contract that you're going to have to trade anyways, and everyone knows you're going to have to trade it because I think he's guaranteed like 50 million this next season.
Yeah, I thought I heard it was like 60, but
Yeah,
and I mean, what do you do with that? If you're Rodgers, where would you even be able to go where you're gonna just like have immediate success?
Jets, Raiders.
I mean, I'd love to see him go to the Jets because I like Saleh and what he's doing there, and I do think that the pieces are coming together. I wonder if they have the depth to like really hit the ground and run like that. Um, the Raiders, I don't know, man. I don't think the Raiders are like there's always something off with the Raiders, and I don't like McDaniels. You talked about the defense being
Washington,
subpar. What's that?
Washington.
I mean, Washington would be cool. I think it'd be good for Rivera. They got McLaurin, they got some weapons there.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be an AFC team that if the Packers are not going to trade him inside the conference, so
Yeah,
but it's going to probably be an AFC team, so that leaves like the Colts, the Raiders, the Jets. Who else is looking for a
yeah, and we
quarterback?
thought it'd be the Colts a couple of years ago.
hmm
Uh, Maybe just a few years too
Houston,
late.
Houston, but they don't have any talent.
Yeah, Houston would be a bad spot for him.
I'm
I mean, I
trying to
could
think
see,
who else is looking for a
Indy, but
quarterback.
Indy had such a bad year that, I just wonder that, you know, the the strength that we saw in Indy for the last few years, it was not there this year. The offensive line was like really subpar. Shaq Leonard like almost never played. Um, I don't know. Like I feel like you got to blow up Indy. Like I think it's
Tennessee,
well. Oh, I freaking Tennessee would be freaking sweet. Going
heck,
in man, Vrabel. Oh,
heck, Packers, Baltimore trade Lamar for Rodgers. Just call it a wash.
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, and I guess they're talking about Tannehill being out in Tennessee, and so yeah, I wasn't really thinking that just because I give Tannehill probably more credit than most people do, but yeah, hey, all right. So there's some options. There's
And
some
Malik
options.
Willis looked lost, so
Yeah, no, he's not ready. No way.
yeah.
All right, man. So news-wise, anything else, or are you good there?
There was something. So, so a couple things I picked up on is one of the rumors was Trey Lance going to Tennessee,
Okay.
and apparently Trey Lance because some guy, uh, player personnel director from the 49ers, was hired by Tennessee, Rand Carthon for to be the general manager in Tennessee,
Okay.
and apparently he said something about um, about Lance. I forget exactly what he said about Lance, going to Tennessee, and then Shanahan kind of pulled him aside and he said that like the next morning after it was said, he's like have you seen everything? People say you're going to Tennessee. He's like, what are you talking about? I just saw it. People are talking crazy. They don't know what they're talking about. I just thought it was funny.
Oh,
So that was something interesting. Apparently, it happened during the season because he was close with
Carthon, or however you say his name.
Carthon. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Well, you never know. Sometimes where there's smoke, there's fire.
yeah, and the other thing is apparently this off season the league is looking at banning the pushing the quarterback on the QB sneak rule or making
Okay.
it against the rules because like remember a couple years ago you couldn't push the pile and then they changed the rule and so they were looking at it and QB sneak um, conversions for 2022 if you look at it the Bengals had converted 16 of 20 QB sneaks for a first down. The 49ers had 17 for 20, Browns had 17 for 20, and the Eagles had 37 for 41.
Yeah,
So it's
so they're
like
saying it's too effective, and
it's too effective.
yeah, I would be more concerned about hurting the quarterback if you got somebody pushing behind him and then people coming at him. It just seems like that's risk of some kind of like head or neck or back injury because you're gonna like compress the guy from both ways, man.
Hmm. So pushing the ball carrier, apparently it was in 2005 it became legal. I was thinking the college rule, and that happened in 2013. But the Eagles were apparently fully capitalized on it this year.
I mean, the Eagles lit it up, and just in the Super Bowl they had however many of them.
So the average first down conversion. So there were 308 quarterback sneaks called by the league in the league this year. Average first down conversion was 83%,
Okay.
and it was the highest since 2000, since it was became legal. And it's, if you go back just 7 years or 6 years ago in 2016, there were fewer than 100 QB sneaks.
Okay. Well, I mean, you're playing with fire when you do that to your quarterback, man. I mean, if the guy gets hurt, you're in trouble.
Yeah, but it's also not. It's not just looking at the quarterback or the QB sneak. They're looking at pushing the pile overall, because
I
that,
gotcha.
like, you, how
Yeah.
many times did you see like first and goal on the one, and you run the ball, and you have the running back, or have some guy come behind the running back and push the pile forward
Yep. Yeah.
like a scrum, and it ends up being like a rugby scrum basically.
That's true. Yeah. Is this football or rugby? I don't know. I don't know if I'm for it or against it. I just don't want to see guys get hurt from it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Like,
but yeah, I mean, it's like, man, in the Super Bowl, Philly was just so dominant. But I think it's like for them, part of it is just their offensive line is that dominant. And so, but you're saying a lot of other teams.
yeah.
Cincinnati, that's kind of a shock because their offensive line sucked again this year. So,
Yeah. So, and the only other thing I had was Aaron Jones and the Packers agreed to reduce his salary for the 2023 season to give him a little bit of cap room, which is good.
yeah, I mean, hey, just trade me because I'm worth every penny.
Yeah. So apparently it's I was glancing at it, and so
I like Aaron Jones. I thought he was underutilized this past year. And
it
part of it's because they
converts.
got A.J. Dillon, so.
Yeah. So it converts it to a signing bonus as opposed.
So
So
he's still getting it. They just
he's still getting it.
shuffled it around to
They just shuffled
alleviate
it
cap
around.
space. I
Right.
gotcha.
So that it was 11 million this season that he was no, he agreed on a reduced salary of 11 million this season. So it went from 16 to 11, and that 5 million went to a signing bonus, which will be spread over the remainder of the contract, which is 2 more years.
Okay.
So because he was supposed to have a 20 million cap hit this year.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a
And
lot for a running back.
yeah, and the other one was Jonah Williams and Joseph Asai from the Bengals had surgery.
Okay.
Jonah Williams to repair because he had dislocated knee, and Asai was to fix a torn labrum.
Gotcha. Good to know. Good to know.
I think that was it.
All right. Well, hey, if you're ready, man, we'll take a breath and we'll move over to our Super Bowl 57 recap. Sound good?
Oh, I'm fucking ready.
All right. Well, here I'll tee it up for you, and then I'll let you take it because I think you wanna run with this here. obviously, anybody who watched the game or heard about the game, Kansas City won 38-35 over Philadelphia. One of the highest scoring games in Super Bowl history. From a viewership standpoint, there was 113 million viewers, which not the most watched all time, but it was the most watched in 6 years, is what I saw.
Mm-hmm.
And so, with that out of the way, James, why don't you give us your rundown, man? I see you chomping at the bit here.
So, for those of you that, for those people that took the under, first two drives of the game, like, Philly goes down and they score. It's like, wow, that was easy.
Yeah.
Kansas City goes down and scores. Wow, that was even fucking easier. This game's going to be ridiculously high scoring and no defense, which is a surprise. There's a few things out of the game. Ebb and flow. Philadelphia was up by 10 at halftime, and they looked to be rolling. And then the second half came around. And that 10 at halftime was even after Hurts fumbled the ball, which was returned for a touchdown.
Yeah, Nick Bolton picked it up and ran it in, man.
Yeah, and there was almost
flukish, but it really kept the game close because Philly was like dominating that first half, man.
Yeah, and at halftime, teams trailing by double-digit points prior to this Super Bowl were ahead by double-digit points were 26-1 in the Super Bowl. Which, first of all, I'm shocked that of the 56 previous Super Bowls, almost half of them had a team up by double digits at halftime.
Yeah, that seems high.
And it was the one comeback was the 28-3 game.
The
Patriots over the Falcons. So you go to the second half. And it was a close game. The one thing I can say coming out of the Super Bowl is the concerns about Hurts being the man in Philadelphia, I think, are completely gone.
Oh, they've got to be.
They got to be. He had a phenomenal game. They played. Philadelphia played Kansas City almost perfectly. In the first half, I think of the 30 minutes in the first half, 22 minutes time of possession for Philadelphia, 8 minutes for
dominated.
Kansas City. At halftime, first of all, I'm not going to get into how terrible the halftime show was.
I do want to talk about it, but yeah, I'll come back to it.
How Rihanna was lip singing during the halftime show, because it's amazing that you can still hear her singing when her lips aren't moving and she drops the mic.
Well, all right. Well, let's just talk about it because I was gonna wait, but then you kept going. So, James,
I couldn't resist.
Yeah, let me just give you my 2 cents on the halftime show. I understand that this kind of music, like the poppy whatever, is like all the rage these days. And me, I'm a rock guy, and I don't know a whole lot about this music, but it doesn't matter. Like a good show is a good show. The problem I had is that it was very sexual in nature, the way that she was touching herself. And, to me, this is something that's being seen by over 100 million people, and it's a lot of families. I was watching the game with my son, and both my wife and my daughter came in for the halftime show. And, to me, I would have preferred it be a little bit cleaner in that regard, because this isn't like, 11 o'clock at night, frickin' HBO, Cinemax or something. This is like public TV at like, I don't know, 8 o'clock, man. I mean, it's just not, it could have been more tasteful.
It could have been a lot more tasteful. Apparently the league, as part of the halftime show, the reason why they had the floating stage was because the directive for the set designers was the set cannot touch the field.
The field was as shitty as it could get anyhow.
It was as shitty as it could get anyhow. The league spent a lot of money on the field on trying to make sure it was perfect, and the set couldn't touch the field. It was
Uh,
absolutely absurd.
yeah, and how
Absolutely
many
absurd.
guys were slipping and sliding in that game, James? And they
Hmm.
talked about it in the first half. Philly changed cleats almost immediately in that game,
Hmm.
especially if they were on the paint, man. They were sliding all over the place.
Yeah. So that's the thing, and this is where I'm not a chemist. I know jack shit about paint. What I've been reading on the paint is they switched to like a latex paint
Okay.
that when this type of paint changes temperatures, goes from a hot temperature to a cold temperature, it sweats, which makes it slick.
Okay.
So as you know, the field in Arizona rolls out. So it rolls back in for the game, and it rolls out to get the sun, blah blah
Yeah.
blah. So that could theoretically be an issue with it. So you go to the ebb and flow of the first half. I just looked at it. You had 2 touchdowns in the first quarter, but third quarter, all the scoring in the third quarter, besides the Bolton touchdown, was Philadelphia.
Hmm.
And
You mean the second quarter?
second quarter, all of it was Philadelphia, and the quarters kind of a little bit mirror each other, but that we'll get there. So halftime sucked. Everyone was slipping and sliding on the field. Coming
Yeah, and
to
and Butker missed that point attempt early on too,
Yeah, he missed that
which
field goal. I forgot about it.
man,
Forgot about
I
that.
tell you, when he missed that, I thought, oh man, this is going to be a
Mm-hmm.
factor in this game, and
Mm-hmm.
it didn't end up working out that way. But you know how I am with kickers, man. When they miss one, it's like, up, game over, because they always get in their own heads, man.
Yeah, look at what's his face from Dallas a couple weeks
Yeah, yeah, just whatever
early in the play.
for.
Maher
No,
was that?
no,
Zerline? No.
yeah, yeah, I think it was it Zerline? No, because yeah, Maher was a couple of, oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank now.
Yeah, me too. It was
I'd
like,
have to look it up.
yeah, I'm gonna look it up because it's gonna fucking bug me.
My kicker game is not strong right now.
Yeah, it's.
Uh,
I was right the first time. It was Maher.
all right, it was Maher. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
thinking of what was the other guy that they got from no, I'm thinking the dude that went from Dallas to Minnesota. Not yeah, all right, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm mixing myself up here.
Yeah. So, anyways, and I forgot about that. Which that was absolutely the right call. You kicked the field goal. He missed it. It didn't work out. Big deal. It didn't play a factor in the game. In the second half, Pacheco scores the first touchdown in the second half with from on the run, and then uh, Philadelphia kind of drives the field. They right after that, but they have to settle for a field goal. So it's Philadelphia up by 27-21 going into the fourth quarter, which was basically the Chiefs' quarter. I had Kadarius Toney had like a wide open touchdown.
Yeah, that 5 yard. It was like a it was like a fake jet sweep that they ended
Yeah,
up passing off to him, and yeah, he just like walked right in.
yeah. And then we go to Sky Moore's touchdown. Have you heard much about Sky Moore's touchdown?
No, but that was his first touchdown of his career.
Yeah. The Chiefs lined up in the wrong formation for
Oh,
that play.
jeez.
So, and I heard about this, and Mahomes said, so he looks to like with Sky Morris on the left, and Sky Moore lined up on the wrong side.
Okay.
He looks to the right where Kadarius Toney is to send him in motion, and Kadarius Toney just points over to the left, and clock's running down. So Mahomes is like, well, fuck it.
Yeah.
Send Sky Moore in motion, just runs the play anyways, even though it's in the wrong formation, and he's wide fucking open,
Yeah.
and scores a touchdown.
Yeah, going back to Tony, he had that 65-yard punt return, which didn't go for a touchdown, but it was the
Right.
longest punt return in Super Bowl history.
Yeah, that was right before. Was that right? Was that before his touchdown, or was that before Moore's touchdown? I forget which touchdown
I
that
think
was.
I think it was after Tony scored the touchdown.
Yeah, I think it was Tony scored the touchdown, then had the punt return. Let me glance, yeah, it was the one for right before Sky Moore's touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, Kansas City came out strong, 3 consecutive touchdown drives.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
then,
then
yeah, go ahead.
and
Yeah.
then you had which it kind of surprised me after Sky Moore's touchdown that Kansas City didn't go for two, because if they went for two there, it would they were up 34-27 before the extra point. If you go for two there, it makes it a score game, which makes it harder for Philly, because you really have to have two possessions to win. But they only hit the extra point, and then Philadelphia and Jalen Hurts had an 8-play 75-yard drive to, and then Jalen Hurts ran in. No, he threw. He ran it in because Devonta Smith didn't get in. He kind of stumbled out of bounds, and when
Yep.
Devonta Smith stumbled out of bounds at like the 2-yard line, I was like, oh God, like Kansas City's going to stop him. That's going to be the game.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to hit on here, what I forgot to hit on with the in this third quarter was, I thought in the same drive, Sirianni had a great coaching decision, then a bad coaching decision.
Okay.
So if you remember on the it was on the field goal drive at the end of the towards the end of the third quarter. It was let me find it. Where the fuck is in the second quarter? Here, touchdown. What? Where? Oh, there it is. Okay, sorry, I couldn't find it. So it was 3rd and 6.
Okay.
And they were having problems getting the play in. No, 3rd and 9. And they were having problems getting the play in. Instead of calling timeout,
Oh yeah.
Sirianni let the delay of game happen.
Took the penalty to save the timeout.
Took the penalty.
Reamed his assistant coach on the sideline.
Mm-hmm.
But then the next play, didn't they have that? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Then they had the
that sweet pass to Goddard, right on the sideline?
Exactly.
Man, dude, he had such a clutch catch there.
Yeah, which I'm not 100% certain that was a catch. Like I like not overturning it. Like live, I was like, no, that.
Oh yeah, because that was the one that was the double catch?
Yeah, it was a double catch, and I'm not 100%, but I like it because it wasn't clear and obvious. I like the play standing.
Yeah.
Then they get first down on that, and then they get another. They go to 4th down. Hurts up does a sneak and gets the first down on 4th and 1, and then you're going later. They're at 3rd and 11, and they again on the same drive they're having problems with the play getting in, and Sirianni calls the timeout to save the yards. They're at Kansas City's 20 at this point, and then on 4th down they only get 5 yards, and anyways have to kick the field goal. So it's that 5 yards wouldn't have mattered there.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. I think he thought this is getting to be important enough that let's dial up the right play and get the first down, and it just didn't happen.
Yeah. And then in the 4th quarter, I went Hurts had the shotgun or the sneak touchdown after Devonta Smith couldn't get his balance after he caught the ball and ended up spinning out of bounds, which I thought that was going to be detrimental to Philadelphia. But Hurts, next play got the touchdown, and then the 2-point conversion.
Yeah.
And tied the game. Which if I remember correctly, on that 2-point conversion, he wasn't touched.
I'm trying to remember.
Anyways, then Kansas City gets the ball, and there's 5 minutes left in the game, and then there's 2 minutes left in the game, and
Yeah, that's
then
where, yeah.
there's a minute 54 left in the game.
I mean, Mahomes
Third.
did have that sweet 26-yard scamper
Oh yes, I forgot about the
to
26
to
yard
get
snap.
him into field goal range, and you
Ish.
know, yeah,
Yeah,
that
they
was
got into
yeah,
field
that
goal
was
range because they got to the
huge.
17, which was, I agree with you. Um, come out of the 2 minute warning. Let's go to the commercial.
Hmm.
I believe this was when the Tubi commercial happened. Did you see
Okay.
that commercial?
I've seen the Tubi commercials, but yeah, I'm not
The
remembering.
one, the one where it's like the game comes back, and then somebody is changing the channel. So
Uh,
it comes back, and it's Greg Olson and Kevin Burkhardt talking. Welcome back to the Super Bowl 57, and then all of a sudden, some guy's changing the channel, and like you see, like the app pop up, and she
okay.
fooled 99% of America
Oh, jeez.
because they're like caused, like the quote I read from the article was, caused a lot of family strife and people yelling at their spouses. Why the fuck are you changing the channel now?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So anyways, I just I that's the one commercial that sticks out in my mind. That one and the Duncan with Ben Affleck and what's her face,
Oh, yeah, J-Lo.
J Lo, stick out of my mind because the one with Ben Affleck and J Lo, Ben Affleck was really working at Dunkin' stores in Boston to film that commercial. He was
Okay.
actually working there and taking orders and people paying through working the drive-through there for that commercial, which I
Gotcha.
thought was great. And then we're at third and what was that? Third and
Third and
8,
8 or something, yeah.
minute 54 left in the game. Philadelphia 15-yard line. And I know I told you I will stop complaining about this, but I'm
No,
going
you
back on
get
that.
it out, man. Get it out.
So Bradbury holds Juju Smith-Schuster,
Yeah.
and it's a very subtle hold. Pass goes incomplete,
It wouldn't
which
have been catchable anyhow.
it doesn't matter for defensive
Yeah.
holding. I'm just going to say
Yeah.
that it wouldn't matter, but still, pass goes incomplete. Supposed to be fourth down. Uh, Kansas City's going to kick the field goal. You're going to have a minute 50 left in the game, or so, around there, and Philadelphia is going to get the ball back. No, the ref finally decides to insert his ass into the
Yeah.
game
I'm
and
not
throw
going to
the
let him
flag.
play this one out. I'm going to
Yeah,
throw the flag now. Yep.
and while I will admit that Bradbury did hold Schuster,
It was weak, dude.
it was a weak call. Earlier in the game, Bradbury freaking tackled him, and they didn't call holding.
Yeah, usually they let him play it out in these games, man.
And I said this earlier in the game. There were a couple calls earlier in the game where I said, "Man, these refs are against Philly." Like there was a like a running into the punter that should have been called that wasn't called. There was on the play before there was like another thing that should have been called that wasn't called, and I was like, "Man, this feels." And I told you that, and then it
Yeah.
turns out. So you have first down, minute 54, and Philadelphia, if they wouldn't have called timeout earlier, would have had 2 timeouts, not one. Would it
Yeah.
have mattered? Possibly. Because they would have been able to get the ball, or they would have been able to get the ball back with
Probably 48 seconds, 50 seconds instead of 8 seconds.
54. They called timeout. They called timeout at 54. Would have called timeout after that play. which went down to 11. It would have been 43 seconds if my math is correct on that.
Okay. Yeah, a lot
But
better than 8.
yeah, but no. So Butker kicks. I'm sorry. Let me go back to a little bit
Sure.
to the. Where is it? It was before that. I'm not seeing the play. Where the fuck is the play? Patrick Mahomes. Yes, there it is. 1st and 10 after at 154. Hand the ball off to Jerick McKinnon. Philadelphia's not trying to tackle him. McKinnon realizes this. And what have we talked about? Situational awareness.
Yeah.
You want to bleed the clock.
Yeah.
He scores there. You give him the ball back with about
plenty of time.
Minute 30 left in the game. Plenty of time to drive the field. He slides. Stays in bounds to force Philly to call the timeout. Slides. And I have to correct myself because it would have been he slides at the Philly 2-yard line, cut the ball in play, heads up play, smart play, probably the best play of of that final drive right there. Yeah, the Mahomes rush, this, but that was the play that sealed the game.
Yeah.
For Kansas City. And where I had to correct myself because there was a minute 36 left and Philadelphia called timeout. So with a minute 36 left after the next play, there would have been a minute 36. That's 40. So minute 20, they would have had a third timeout there. So they would have had 30 seconds left instead of 50. Whatever. Neal Butker kicks the field goal. Then Philadelphia has a desperation heave where Hurts couldn't get the ball downfield.
No, it wouldn't have mattered. They were so far away.
It was weird, but they were so far away. It probably wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah, maybe if you got Josh Allen and he can just send it into orbit, But that was like way far away, man.
Yeah, because they weren't that far away. That's kind of it's just right on the edge of Hail Mary range. Because they were at the play was at the 36-yard line.
Yeah, I mean, if he got right to the line, because you're going to be behind the offensive line, maybe you roll out, you're throwing it from like the 30 maybe. That's a 70-yard bomb, dude. I mean,
it's like about the 45-yard line is what I always heard announcers reference as where you need to get to try a Hail Mary.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're like 5-10 yards away from that because I mean they snapped the ball from their 36-yard line.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it goes incomplete. Kansas City wins the Super Bowl. And because Kansas City wins the Super Bowl, I lose our.
Oh, you want to get to the bet now? Yeah.
I lose our playoff bet.
All right. Well,
I must bow down to the master of
my first time
year.
winning the playoff bet, so I feel happy about that. And before I comment on it too much, I do want to just add a couple final things to the Super Bowl recap. Kansas City, since winning the game, their offensive line has gotten a ton of credit for neutralizing Philly's defense. And I think rightfully so, because Philly had like a freaking ungodly amount of sacks this year. And so that was good by Kansas City's offensive line to neutralize them. But I want to make sure Philly is getting credit as well because their offensive line was the clearly more dominant
Mm-hmm.
offensive line in this game. And then not just their offensive line, A.J. Brown had big plays, Devonta Smith had big plays, Goddard had big plays. Obviously, Hurts had big plays. Hurts was he set the Super Bowl rushing record for a quarterback with 70 yards. He tied the rushing touchdown record with 3 touchdowns on the ground, ties Denver's running back Terrell Davis from back in the day. And then he was 27 of 38 for 304 yards in the air with a touchdown. And he had
Mm-hmm.
the 2-point conversion. I mean, it was Philly's game, man. And I don't know. I'm bummed out the way that it ended with that bogus. I get it. I mean, hey, it was holding, and Bradbury himself said it was holding, but it was just such a weak call. And
Mm-hmm.
so I wanted, as a true fan, I wanted to see Philly get that chance to go back and have that final drive. That's how the game should have ended. It ended in really just like it was deflating, man.
Mm-hmm.
And Philly really controlled the whole first half. Kansas City came out in the second half and like really made it a good game. But Philly should have had that last chance, man. They got screwed out of that, in my opinion.
Yeah. So I forgot to mention something about that holding call, which I think is hilarious because as everyone knows, Tuesday was Valentine's Day.
Yes, yes,
Did you see Juju's tweet?
I did. Yeah.
So Juju Smith-Schuster tweeted a Valentine's Day card with James Bradbury's picture on it, with the caption that said, "I will hold you when it matters most."
Yes.
But then, and I'm going to go back and find it because,
Yeah. What was it? A.J. Brown jumped in, and
yeah, and I want
a
to
couple other
find,
guys got involved. Yeah.
um, give me a second. I just got to find AJ Brown's tweet because it's hilarious. All right. Where is it? Oh, okay. First off, congratulations. Y'all deserve it. This is lame. You was on the way out of the league before Mahomes resurrected your career on your 1-year deal. TikTok boy. He admitted that he grabbed you, but don't act like you're like that or ever was. But congratulations again. It's just like, I mean that's shocking. And then it was, what's his face? Juju had responded to it,
Yeah.
but something about TikTok boy and
Well, it's just some smack talk, man. A lot of emotions.
glad you were finally able to get all that off your chest after all those years. Good game, bro. But but it's but also C.J. Gardner Johnson. Juju ran from me when I checked him in game. Then 10 got his smoke or something. It was like,
Social media. Social
yeah.
media. It never ends. All right. Well, here, man. Let's get back to the bet, okay? Because I'm a nice guy, and last year I was going to cut you a break if I won both of them, which it didn't apply because you got the playoff bet. And so here's just my thought for this year, because I'm still a nice guy, James. I think that you can choose if you want to put this one on credit for next year, or if you want to do 50 now instead of 100, because the reality is, man, I don't drink a ton, and so that bottle I just got from the regular season bet, that's going to last me a little while. I'm good pushing it to the future and having a credit in my favor in case maybe next year you sweep me. But I'll let you think about it, and you can make the call here, man.
I'm fine with that. Whatever. I'm just annoyed on how the game
Sure.
turned out.
Just
Like,
here, I'll make a note. You sleep on it, and we'll talk about it. Yeah, it was a rough way for that to end, man. And I got a buddy in Philly. He was very upset, and I don't blame him. All right, man. Any? Well, actually, I did have one closing thought on the Super Bowl stuff. Mahomes got hurt before halftime. Looked like he was in excruciating pain. I just want to ask you, man, and this isn't question of the week. This is just for Super Bowl recap. Do you think he played that up? Because he came out and it really didn't look like it was bugging him that much in the second half, man. I think he played it up, man.
I don't think he played it. Possibly.
I think he played it up, dude. They do
Or
stuff like that. Like, the one where they're all looking at the sideline confused, but it was part of the play to do that. The Chiefs do things like that, man.
it's possible. It's possible.
Yeah, we may never know. We may never know. I'm sure it hurt. I'm sure it hurt. I just think he played it up from how much it really hurt. Because, you get tackled like that and you got an ankle injury. Yeah, it's going to hurt. But was it that excruciating? I don't know, man. I think he milked it to let them think, oh, he's not going to be able to run in the second half. And that might have helped him pop off that 26-yard scamper.
Possibly, but he had a big scamper when he was clearly hobbled in the championship game too. So I don't know.
No, that's true. That's true. Okay. All right. Well, I'm good on the Super Bowl recap, man. You want to move it over to question of the week?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, let's do this. And so, James, I want to talk about Vic Fangio for a minute. Uh, you know, he signed with the Eagles for a couple weeks leading up to the Super Bowl. And something similar happened last year with the Rams, where they signed not a coach, but they signed safety Eric Weddle to bolster their Super Bowl efforts. And I balked at that last year, as you know, saying that the league should look at that and maybe put some parameters around, uh, or I don't know if it's parameters or locking rosters or whatever, but it just seems like teams could end up getting an unfair advantage in ways where you're pulling in a guy that really had nothing to do with your team to get you here, and it's giving you a boost at the very end here. Um, I think it'd be different if it was like you pulled a guy off your practice squad because you had somebody get hurt, you needed to fill the void. But I just, I view what they did with Fangio as very similar to the Weddle situation. He was a premier defensive coordinator in the league. Having been on the way out from Denver this past year, he was available. He's going to the Dolphins, but he had a gap. And so Philly hired him for a couple weeks just to help them game plan for the Super Bowl. To me, it just creates a questionable advantage for Philadelphia. That's all I'm saying is that this kind of thing needs to be evaluated. Um, and I don't know, man. What I just want my question of the week is, what is your take on this? What are your thoughts on this? Because to me, it just seems like something's wrong. But I want to know. Maybe it's just me, man.
So it's a little bit different um, for their roles. I would say that Weddle was brought in
Yeah, he's a player.
to play team's defensive signal caller versus the Bengals. Um, where Vic Fangio, prior to the season, Vic Fangio, there was a lot of talk where Vic Fangio was going to be a consultant for the Eagles anyways, but he opted not to.
Okay. Well,
and
that's good information to have.
and he has ties to a lot of the coaching staff apparently. But also, what Vic Fangio did was Vic Fangio's job. He was hired for Philly was to self scout the Eagles and offensive coordinator Shane Steichen to find tendencies that are becoming obvious
Okay.
to get into that. Um, so I think it's a little bit different. I agree with you in a lot of ways. It seems not right, but I think both of them they're different. But also
Yeah,
Weddle,
I mean, Weddle played the whole playoffs, I think, but
yeah,
he wasn't
no,
on the
no,
team at
no,
all for the regular season.
no. He was
He just came
they
in for the Super Bowl.
yeah they activated him
Yeah.
off the practice squad on Saturday. So
Yeah,
he
see,
was
I don't like that. I mean, here, let me just give you a different example, hypothetical example. Oh, hey, Bill Belichick retires, and then what do uh, the Detroit Lions are in the Super Bowl, and they sign Belichick for a 2-week contract to help coach him up for the big game. I mean, it's just like, I think something like that would scream, hey, you can't be doing shit like that. And so to me, it's like, I don't know. Do you lock your roster? Do you lock your coaching staff? Like,
okay. Okay, so Weddle, I just looked up the information, and you're right. He did play the whole playoffs for him. He played 19 snaps in the wild card game, 85% of the plays in the divisional matchup against the Buccaneers, and he never left the field in the championship game
but he was a
against the 49ers.
mercenary that came in for the playoffs. He did nothing. He was retired the whole season.
He was retired the whole season. He was retired the whole season. He retired from the Rams in 2019,
Yeah.
and they had a lot. They were hit late in the season without late in the season they were hit with injuries to both starting safeties.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I mean, you think the Rams connection, it's okay. I'm just saying. I think it's something that has to be looked at, man.
It, I'm not going to 100% disagree with you, but I think I don't see these as the most egregious things. Like if you look at Super Bowl,
Yeah.
uh, Patriots' first Super Bowl, the Spygate scandal,
Yeah.
like stuff like that is more egregious than
Oh yeah.
what.
No, that's just flat out cheating. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's like, oh, hey, it's the Super Bowl. I'm going to go sign LeBron James to come and play my slot receiver role just for 1 week. Like I just I feel like it's a slippery slope, and we're seeing things that could turn into maybe bigger issues in the future. So I don't know. Just my thought.
Yeah, it could, but I think I think there has to be parameters put on it. I would agree, but I wouldn't use these as the most egregious
Yeah, this isn't the tuck
issues.
rule. There's some connections here. I get what you're saying. All right. Well, that's all I got for tonight, man. What do you have closing thoughts? Anything before we wrap this thing up, man?
No, I don't think so. That fucking call. It's just like,
It's grinding at you, man.
yeah, because and like I know I told you I wouldn't bitch about it, but it's like if you look at it and when you go back and you see the egregious calls that were called earlier in the game, if you set a tone for how you're going to call the game,
Yeah.
you can't change it at the most important time of the game.
No, I agree. I
You're
mean, it
going to
was like,
let Bradbury tackle Juju Smith-Schuster on the exact same play
Yeah.
that was ran later in the game, you
Well,
let him fucking tackle him on that play.
it was like the Harbaugh with what's his face at wide receiver on the 49ers against the Ravens. And there was a lot of pushing both ways there, and they didn't call it. They let him play it out, and they said that they let him play it out because they do that in these games. Obviously, Jim Harbaugh was bitching up a storm about it. John Harbaugh got the benefit of it. Um, there was a lot more going on in that game that led to that, but it's just like, you know, you just got to be consistent. Are you going to let them play it out or not? You know,
Yeah,
so
and like if you look, officiating's not perfect, and I forget the whole situation behind it. I forget it was Super Bowl 48, was it?
I don't know.
Where okay, so there was a play where basically late in the game, yeah, no, the defeated the Broncos 43-8. No, no, it was the Super Bowl. I forget what Super Bowl it was. Anyways, where basically there was a late score by a team to take the lead, and it might have been, I don't know, I don't remember what it was, but there's a late score where the player at that time you couldn't use the ball as a prop.
Okay.
And the player, as part of the celebration, used the ball as a prop. I forget the exact specifics of it. I read this article earlier today, and the refs didn't
They didn't call it.
call it, which basically it would have amounted to the team. I think it was Pro Football Talk that had it. Let me see if I can find it. 2 seconds.
Sure. Yeah, and while you're looking at that, I'll just do the shout out for everyone. Hey, if you made it this far, we appreciate you guys watching the show. Hope you liked it. If you haven't already, go ahead, hit that like button. And if you haven't already, subscribe. It definitely helps us. Like I said earlier, we do this every week. And the off season, topics will vary. We'll talk about CMU players in the NFL. We'll talk about off-season team needs. We'll talk about the draft. We'll talk about fantasy football. There'll be all sorts of unique, fun topics that we just kind of pull out of thin air. Sometimes they're connected to what's going on in the schedule. Sometimes they're just fun topics for us to talk about. So, keep joining us. And please comment, play, name that stadium, answer our question of the week, all that jazz.
Yeah, I don't know if I knew real quick, but basically what it amounted to is the team that scored the touchdown would have been kicking from their own 15 because it would have been a 15-yard penalty.
Okay.
And they didn't call it, and so they kicked off normal, which robbed us from a possible. But I forget what Super Bowl it was.
Okay.
I forget the specific. I'll have to look it up.
Gotcha. And no biggie. All right, man. Well, hey, if you're good, I'll shut us down here.
I'm good.
All right, James. It was fun, man. Catch you later.
Yep.
Gridiron Grinder. Hut hut hike.